Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the SHC Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Sisk, and today we'll be featuring entertainment icon Matt LeMond. Matt LeMond, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but we're finally here.
Hey, look, your patience and persistence is both appreciated.
It goes both ways for sure. Right when I had this podcast avenue idea, you were one of the first ones that came to mind. So
look, I'm always honored to be a part of everything with Spring Hill College, so I appreciate you thinking about me.
For sure. What was the O'Dailies when you were a student at Spring Hill?
Man, I feel like it flipped a lot of different places at times. We had Illusions, which was kind of down the hill by Municipal Park. And then there was the Red Lion, which was on Spring Hill Avenue, which, that part of town's still a little bit,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd send people that way, but, Spring Hillians are going to find the place,
Right.
And so, but I did feel like we didn't have a lot of loyalty to a specific spot, so.
I feel the loyalties now to O'Dailies for sure. I mean, the St. Patty's Day, people live for that.
Yeah, look, I've been so blessed and so thankful for, being a Badger and seeing a lot of the Badgers kind of along the years in turn support and the college, has been very supportive also. We've hosted a lot of events alumni wise. And so it's really cool. And that's kind of to me, the blessing of being a Spring Hillian, I to this day say that my degree was in networking because, Badgers stick together. So,
We do.
yeah.
What was your entry into the bar scene?
I worked as a bar back. I was 18 years old, summer before I moved to Mobile for college, and was working at a bar back in a bar in New Orleans. Like, really just like, my mom worked for a guy that owned the building, and so I was like, oh, like extra cash, cool. And I kind of liked the fast pace of it, and I
Yeah.
kind of liked the social aspect, but I was still working. I've always been kind of motivated to work. Um, and then when I came to Spring Hill, it just kind of, maybe followed me a little bit in wanting that. And
Was it the working in the bar or like the hanging out in the bar that followed you?
maybe a little bit of both, for sure. Maybe a little bit of both. But the working in the bar, at a young age, I was like, okay, like I can be here, socialize, and make money. This is great.
Yeah.
And a Spring Hillian that was a fraternity brother of mine, Dan Merker, had a DJ business and had another DJ. And this place was called Hammerheads. It's where the BJ's Brew House is on Airport. And he was out of town. His DJ was like super sick. He's like, can you fill in? I was like, absolutely. I could figure this out. I was basically just like a glorified playlist maker that first night. But
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. Like, I can control how everybody moves and I'm getting paid to do this. So then I kind of was like, all right, I like this a lot. And I was under 21. And so I was like, and so I kind of dove into that a little bit
Yeah.
and DJ'd at Bojangles every Monday and Thursday for like 3 years. And then kind of cycled that into my like a business, which in turn turned into the first bar that I opened. So where, gosh, I think it's been a lot of places since then, but it's Bar 9 now,
Yeah.
Saddle Up.
Yeah.
So I was DJing it was called Risque, and the guy that owned it was like, I think you can own this and not run it into the ground. What do you think? And I was 22, and
So he sold it to you?
so I bought it. Yeah,
Dang.
22. So I bought it, changed the name to Catch 22. And then about 6 months later is when I started building out O'Dailies. So it's weird thinking back now because I'm 39 and thinking about being 22, 23. But, you just, mind over matter just kind of takes over and you're like, hey, I'm just going to do the work. So,
Yeah.
it's been cool.
What advice would you give to a 22 or 23-year-old?
Ask for help. No, like, I've always been a little bit of a financial saver. I've never been a big spender, and so I felt like over the years I had the money to purchase that bar and to kind of float it, and I felt comfortable with that. But I really do encourage someone that's really looking into anything is kind of doing the homework and reach out to the people. Like most people are willing to help,
Yeah.
and along my process, I've really had great people reach out, and it allows me to kind of reprocess how I did certain things. And a lot of the things that I teach is what not to do,
Hmm.
try to
Hmm.
eliminate this mistake that maybe I made and you can avoid. And, it was somewhere along the lines of like expanding O'Daly's where I had someone painting a mural and she was like, you know what I like about you? She goes, you're risk oblivious. And I was like, whoa, there's risk involved. So like that's when I was like, wait a second. But it's just I think that I had really done the homework of cost and allowed myself to kind of believe in the work that I was putting into it.
Hmm.
And I kind of look at it as like smart risks and dumb risks.
Hmm.
A smart risk, you've got your finances set, you've kind of got a little bit of a parachute there, and you go into it, and the business, it think challenges could happen, COVID, whatever, like, and for whatever reason, it might not work out. I've had those happen, and I've learned a lot. I've lost some time, but the knowledge is there.
Yeah.
The dumb risk, you put everything you have on black. You don't have the research as much. You just think, hey, I've got this idea and it should do well in this area. And it's just you're gambling,
Right.
and it's
Right.
like you're playing roulette and you got money on black, it's gonna hit the two green ones. And that's just it's a tough feeling. I've been in that feeling before. I've made that decision before, and thankfully it hit black, and it worked out. But I swore I would never put myself or anybody else in that type of position because all of your methodology and your business like uh energy is suddenly just like all you can think about is trying to get out of the quicksand, and it just
Right.
you're in panic mode.
Can you walk us through that scenario?
Yeah, so it was actually the OGO dailies. I think people kind of call it the car bomb bar, or the third one from the corner. So that was the original O dailies, and I was expanding into the other two buildings,
Yeah.
and I'd only really been open 2 years. It felt like a lot longer, and I was also, I don't even know if people know this, but I opened a pita pit here,
Hmm.
and so the same day that I signed the lease to expand O'Daly's, I also paid the franchise fee to do Pita Pit in Mobile. And so just financial wise, I had put some money in both of those, different hands. And then time wise, I'm doing a complete build out with a contractor at Pita Pit. I'm working with a contractor for the expansion of O'Daly's. And it really got down to the end of the nitty gritty where OGO Dailies was pretty much floating this build out, and I had siphoned my cash all the way down. And
Hmm.
I'm thankful that I hadn't had to use a bank, so it was like personal money. So it was like, okay, I'm young, I can recover. But I remember the feeling of we've got to open. Like either we open or we can't make this work. And I'm very blessed with how the business kind of took off with O'Daly's really. Um, and I swore I would never put myself, or encourage anyone else for that feeling. So usually, like, I call it this like stomach kind of nervous, like hair raising feeling where I know something's right, like this is gonna work,
Hmm.
and that's when I kind of funnel my energy into it. But the boxes have to check also.
Hmm.
So, and after a year, I made a decision to back away from Peter Pit. I let my partner take that over, and I just focused on O'Daly's.
Hmm.
So,
Have you had that instinct where the hairs rise, you know it's right your whole life?
you know, maybe I think that I started to lean into it a little bit with original O'Daly's, and then with this expansion, when I was expanding O'Daly's, it was like a lot of conversation of, one, do I want to do it? This is working at 1,000 square feet. Do I
Yeah.
want to make it 6,000 square feet?
And did you always have the outside space in the back?
A sliver. So
Okay.
like, I mean, if you know the size of O'Daly's, the outdoor space was that same width. Like you can just basically see the lines. We had one like 25-foot long picnic table, a cornhole board set, and I mean everybody pretty much had to sit on the table, otherwise you couldn't fit.
Yeah.
It was tiny. So when I took over that extra space, the first thing that I developed was the outdoor space. Because I was like, okay, this is gonna cost less. I can do it faster. I can add a lot of value very quickly. But the outdoor space was actually why I actually chose that location. I was working for Red Bull Energy Drink at the time, and my job was to throw unique events and to never do them at the same location. And so when I had this idea, O'Daly's concept, fun fact, my original location that I really wanted, which never would have worked, was where the Mediterranean sandwich shop is.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, that strip, was definitely more popular. There was more surrounding businesses, and part of it was built out. And then I looked at this spot where O'Daly's is now, walked in, the place was cement floors and cinder block walls. Didn't really get that feeling like I'm telling you about. Opened the back door and I saw this lot, and it was like weeds over my head, some trees. And I was like, this is it. Like, I could envision the type of events that I eventually wanted to throw. So
Yeah.
seeing that come to life, is really cool and kind of a blessing. But yeah, that was probably the initial reason for that space. So
Awesome. Well, let's talk Red Bull. So you studied biology at Spring Hill?
that's right. Yeah.
And then how'd you get on with Red Bull event sales?
Yeah, so I was part-time working for Red Bull. That was, 2005. So $15 an hour was, pretty good hourly for that time. I was like, this is great. And I'm giving away free product. So I was like one of the people that drove the car around, passed out free Red Bull. I was like how much better can this get?
Right.
Giving somebody free stuff, working with cool people, and so, and I loved Red Bull's business mentality. And
They do a lot of the freemium. They give and then get later, like all the mats you see at the bar when you order. They give free Red Bull, free and the mini fridges too, I hear.
Yeah. Great marketing. A lot of how I run a business and look at a business was really from Red Bull. My time with Red Bull, and I kind of worked up to project manager, so I was in charge of like the infrastructure from Biloxi to Panama City, and then worked up to, a marketing position where we threw cool events from we'd have 24-foot Penske trucks, and we would back it into college tailgate area, and it'd be like a DJ and a club and stuff like that in the tailgate, all the way to we rented, this house was for sale for like $4 million, and I called the realtor and said, hey, can we rent this for 10 days? And she was like, the guy's name was Mike Money that owned it. I'll never forget that. And his two questions he asked me, he said, are you going to allow me to come to the house if I want to? And I was like, yeah. He said, and are there going to be Red Bull girls there? I said, both of those are yes. So yeah, come on. But we moved all the furniture to the garages, brought in casino equipment, brought in Waffle House cooks, suspended a DJ from the second floor. And then we threw like basically parties for our Red Bull accounts. And so they closed and we made a bunch of keys to the house. And so their invitation was the key to the front door. It was cool. We had Red Bull skydivers jump in with Jaeger bottles.
No way.
It was cool. Like,
what city was this in?
Panama City.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it was like those types of ideas. Like, how can we create, like with O'Daly's, I wanted to create a brand, not a business.
Yeah.
And so how do I create a brand that Spring Hillians, as they graduate and move on, pass down to, the other Spring Hillians or, Mobile. And so it's like, how do I create this brand, And it was really trying to do the things that people were like, man, he's crazy, or this is dumb, and a lot of them didn't work, some of them, I mean, I still joke I talked with some of my first managers yesterday. They sent like a photo of one of the drinks that we made, and it was like this 30-ounce drink, like just a terrible idea. But also like in my first, few months, we did free baked potatoes. Like there was free crawfish, Irish pub, we're like, do free baked potatoes.
Right.
Silly idea, never panned out. But then, the car bomb, it was one of the ideas. And like, it's really something that people identify us with.
Yeah.
And for the first week, we were actually home of the $3.25 car bomb, but that's got a terrible ring to it. And then if you give, it was a quarter nightmare, so we're giving 75 cents all the time. And so we bumped it to $4 and then stayed at that. But like my goal was to always keep it at like a cost car bomb and the experience around taking the Irish car bombs. So that was the goal of building the brand. And that was really taught from working with Red Bull.
Did you, when you were thinking about building a brand, do you automatically go to Irish pub, or were there other types of...
Yeah, it's what felt right for me. At that young age for me, when I did travel and did go to places out of town, I liked going to the Irish pubs.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a cleaner dive bar, It was always like a more comfortable place to be. Good beer. The food was always generally good, but it was just like, didn't feel high end. That, is kind of what I was looking for. And so when I thought about that for downtown, it was like we had Callahan's, and it's so close to downtown, but it's not downtown. And so it was like, how to create this space that feels like just like fun, high energy, slam your drink down. That's why I like with the Irish car bombs, like for 90, as much as possible, they're in glass and glass shot glasses. The goal is to hear the clink, make the mess, have the mustache, like that's part of it. And so, yeah, it just felt right. It just felt like a good addition to downtown Mobile at that time.
And it was. Now I've only seen downtown with O'Daly's, and that's the heart, that's the center. Yeah.
It's definitely, you hear bars and restaurants and like statistics of like open, close, and I've never really paid attention to stuff like that. For me, it's, I wake up and go to work just like anybody else.
Right.
Thankfully, I've, just kind of been motivated by that drive. And I've had a lot of great people that I've worked with. I mean, this world is, our community, the people we work with, our customers. I mean, it's such a blessing, and that world doesn't go round without those people.
I agree. At what point did you decide to branch off from bar into restaurant?
Yeah, I always felt like we needed to add food to O'Daly's because I'd kind of noticed a lot of people kind of getting hungry and skipping down and not making their way backs and stuff like that. And then when I opened Post, the type of business that I was going for with that, I would say brand, was more sit down. O'Daly's, I kind of consider it a rub your shoulders business. You go with each other, but we might rub shoulders and see people we know. And hey, I might run back into you in a little bit. Post is a little bit more of, we go together, we sit at a table, we might see other people to sit with us, but we're generally going with and meeting the people you're going there to see. So I felt like because people are more stationary, that aspect of having food was such a necessity. My goal has always been to be a bar with food versus like a restaurant-esque. Mainly because, I can make you a pizza, I can make you a burger, but you're only going to eat one. And it might take me 15, 20, 25 minutes to do it. I can serve you a beer, glass of wine, or whatever in about 10 seconds.
And the car bombs too, those are even quicker.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the food is a good balance. And I mean, this business is tough. There's a juggle of liability, my number one rule is the safety of our customers, the safety of our staff, and the safety of myself. And then we look at making money. And so like there is a big balance of that. And I think the food helps to, have that availability for people to, keep something in their bellies versus, try to go on the liquid diet.
Yeah.
So
As an upcoming entrepreneur, everyone says be weary of the restaurant bar space.
Yeah.
But you dove right in. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's like it's at this point it feels like, what I know best and kind of all I know.
Yeah.
Uh I've tried to diversify myself a little bit through, real estate and some other like business management stuff. But to me, with I've always felt like I wanted to have a career that involved people,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it was helping people in the, the medical world or something else, but I've always been driven to be around other people and to like engage happiness and engage, that energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've kind of looked at, these businesses where it's like a place where people can kind of, you know, enjoy the people that they're with. Maybe they're sharing a birthday or some good news, celebrating, something with work, or just like spending time together.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of my best ideas have come on, cocktail napkins or, just, talking to pals at, while we've been, having some drinks. And so, I'd like to try to create a space like that as well. So,
Yeah.
but it's a tough business because we do our business during the day. 9 to 5 is when we do our meetings, we get our deliveries, we talk to our reps, we do all that stuff, but we make our business from 5 to, later. So it's just a around the clock thing. And so it's, you know, I take the compliment when people say, "Oh, you did it at such a young age." I can't imagine doing it at an older age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had that energy to work around the clock. So
There's a quote about risk that made me think of you, and it's opportunities only look like opportunities in the rearview mirror. Currently, they look like risk.
okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's the truth. I mean, it's again when you've talked to the people that you feel like you need to talk to, you've done your research.
Mm-hmm.
I can usually meet with someone. I had somebody recently meet with me, and they're looking at doing something out of town, and I'm very encouraging to what they're trying to do. But I was like, you need more information. Like like
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you're motivated, and I can tell you have the enthusiasm, but you need more data.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get out there and find somebody in your area that's either done this business and is no longer in it. You need to figure out, because in our business, people equate lots of people as lots of money. And there's so many other factors that dwindle it down from overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And, that the excitement of owning a business is awesome. It's so cool. Like, I still get that great feeling when a business opens, but it can come to real life very quickly when all of a sudden you're like, man, this is just not turning the money that I thought it was going to turn.
Mm-hmm.
And you're grinding way harder than you imagined.
Yeah.
But the doing the homework, meeting the right people, again, yeah, those opportunities, do feel like good obstacles and challenges, but come with rewards as well.
Certainly. How does the workload differ from real estate to the entertaining space?
Yeah, I mean, it's I've kind of tried to dive into my own life a little bit where, hey, look, I do have a property manager for, a couple of the places that I do have. And so obviously you lower a little bit of the value that you would get for
Mm-hmm.
that, but the opportunity to free up that time and for the longer investment is
Mm-hmm.
just worth it. I try to be as hands-on as possible. Just, you just care for the space and care for the tenants because I really look at them as business owners
Mm-hmm.
versus tenants. And that's what I think that I enjoy about owning commercial real estate is understanding what it feels like to be a tenant and maybe not appreciated sometimes, and also, uh, you know, being the property owner and trying to support those business because, the longevity of them and, those people are taking risks and for them to do it in a space that you own, I just don't take stuff like that lightly, so I really try to, but it's night and day difference in work for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's night and day. The residential can be a little bit of workload, but it's usually the sillier stuff. It's usually most of them are people that are living in the house and they just don't quite have the knowledge of, being a homeowner and fixing certain things. And so it's easier to kind of like, hey, here's the air filter for the place, and drop it off or put it in for them versus like send the message and never get done. And so, but it is a rewarding rewarding aspect and kind of avenue of other income, which does feel more passive, So I definitely try to diversify that because I mean, COVID showed us completely that everything's volatile. Everything has its ups and its downs at times. And so kind of having that diversification's allowed me to feel a little bit more comfortable in those times.
Yeah. I know more about residential than commercial investing. What do you look for in a residential property?
Yeah. So, I mean, margins, obviously.
Of course,
Yeah. The margins all for sure. I try to keep the percent margin at a certain level. And then also what feels better for me is just having a better product and the location of it. I've had a few in different places, and I feel like it works a little bit better. I had one near South, and it was college guys that went to South. They lived there for quite a while, and they ended up becoming pretty good friends. They would come and know dailies, and they'd be like, "Landlord, come to your car bomb with us." They were good guys and stuff. But it's really for me. I found that like a little bit more of the, the area of town felt best for me, and also the ability for me to get there. Because even if you have a property manager and something happens, they're calling you, and then they're calling the maintenance person. Because of the bar business, I have a lot of the contacts with plumbers, HVAC. So I realized I was like wasting time and missing steps by having a property manager, because the tenant would call them and say, hey, the heat's not working. They would call me. I would be like, I'll just go there. And you go there, and the sofa's pushed up to the intake. You push it off 6 inches and the heat works,
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, what am I going to do? Charge them for my, bill them an hour? No, you're just like, hey, hope they pay on time. But it is good. I do lean more towards commercial real estate because I know it better. Residential for me, I feel like you have to have more of it, just because of the margin size. But Mobile's shown that the residential market's growing, and our city's done a fantastic job at new business and growth, and so it's definitely land is always a great investment.
It is. Yeah. There's a great quote. Forgot who says it, but it's buy land, they stop making
That's
it.
right. That's right. Took the words out of my brain.
Yeah. Would you consider investing in a home out of state or out of city? Because I'm looking at a few here with various people in real estate, but I don't know where I'm going to end up next year.
Right.
So what would you do?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, like, if it makes financial sense, absolutely. And it's an investment, and, you can always sell it, like you can always look at it. You can always, if the margins are good and you decide that, hey, the management's just a little bit tough with me not being in town, like you can find a low level partner that has a percentage to help you manage that versus having a property manager. Cause usually they, take 1 to 2 months of your rent, and so that just adds up quick with taxes and insurance. But no, I mean, I definitely encourage that. I swore that I would never do business in New Orleans, and just because I'm from there, it's home. It's kind of been this like sacred place where I can go and enjoy and not think about work, and more opportunities have presented themselves in New Orleans because of just knowing people and knowing the area. But look, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Trust your gut. If your gut and your homework and resources all, work themselves out, I encourage that, because ultimately you're going to learn something from it. And it could turn into something that is a great investment, or it could turn into something that's, you make a little bit of money, but sometimes investments make money, but the time that you spend does not equate to the money that you're making. And so like, that's a lesson that I wish I would have learned at a younger age, that like valuing your time, Like, what do you value your hourly rate? And does this equate to what your hourly rate, or could you be focusing that energy in something else that could make you more money longer? So
Mm-hmm.
it took me a long time to look at it because I was young and full of life and full of energy and all this stuff. And I was like, I can stay up late, I can wake up early, I can make time for this. But I realized that like your life still matters and your relationships and stuff like that. And so really focusing on, okay, is this really worth my grind? So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Makes sense for sure.
yeah.
When you were deciding an exit opportunity for O'Daly's, how long did your gut tell you it's time before the decision was made?
Whew, I don't know. Ah, man, that was a very tough decision for me. I mean,
So that's a baby. I mean, that's a
O'Daly's,
kid.
that's my baby. I mean, it is. I mean, and I think what I settled on the most was that it's my business baby. You know, it's not my real life baby. And, you know, COVID life took a turn for me. My personal life took a little bit of a turn for me. And it's, you know, something that I'm very open and vulnerable about, and something that I enjoy speaking about just because the sake of trying to encourage others through, you know, being more outspoken and mental health and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on themselves and stuff. And so I had kind of processed some change with O'Daly's the year before, actually. Um, and and so it was kind of like in me mentally, and something that I was kind of just like, okay, is this the right fit for me? And kind of going back to the time spent, you know, O'Daly's, you know, has near the amount of employees as all of the other businesses combined. You know, it's really 3 bars and a
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so it's a beast. Like, it is a beast of a business to run. I mean, it's 6,000 indoor square feet. It's probably close to 10,000 total. So it's a lot. And then not owning that property was probably the biggest decision for moving on, you know, and I've been there for coming up on 15 years, and uh and really pushed to have some skin in the game for owning that building, just to give it the necessary upgrades that it deserves. And the property owners weren't interested. And, you know, between me kind of processing life a little bit and where I wanted to focus some energy, and that, it just felt right, you know, and it's, you know, no different than I feel like, you know, somebody kind of walking away from a sport.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like, you know, I'm walking away with it in good hands. You know, I'm walking away with, I mean, we don't call it staff. It's the O family, you know, they are family. And, you know, and my business is across the street. So it's like I'm very far. But I felt like it was in a good place for me to walk away, where maybe, you know, I'm not needed as much as I was when I first opened it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How'd you go about finding the buyer?
yeah. So he basically asked me, it was my first customer ever at O'Daly's. Australian guy, lives across the street from Outsider, like, you know, a half a block away from O'Daly's. And he, you know, he's been a friend, he's been a regular.
So how'd the first customer situation? Did you put a open sign and he came on in?
Listen, I think it was probably similar to the expansion, where we're like, open the doors, and we're like, oh my gosh. And if you look at the pictures from like the before pictures of O'Daly's, there was like nothing on the walls. Like, it was like just solid like wood paneling. You know, it was like so bare. It smelled like, you know, lacquer from the floors. You know, I mean, I'm just young kid who's just like, we got to open up, you know. And so we open up, and, you know, this guy, I mean, just living nearby, you know, sees the door open quite a bit. When are y'all going to open? And yeah, so, and like I said, we became friends over the years. He's always treated the staff over the years so well. So, um, but I want to say it was like right around St. Patrick's Day this past year, and we had the green dress run, and we are about to shoot the gun for the start of the race, and he was on one side, my dad was on the other. And he said, hey, mate, what would it take to own this bar? And I was like, call me on Monday. And then they shoot the gun, race takes off. And I think it was probably a few hours later, maybe my dad was a little bit in shock, you know, and he's like, would you really sell this place? And I was like, you know, think I would. You know, like I said, I'd kind of been processing that change for a little bit to refocus some personal energy and some business focus as well, knowing it was at a good spot where I could walk away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Look, I mean, we signed papers and they were like, "Do you want to sign in the office or do you want an e-signature?" And like, I fully had to do like an e-signature. I don't know if I would have been like, you know, and ultimately it's like, you know, it's weird. You know, it's definitely feels like, you know, like the closest thing to a kid going away to college, you know, and kind of moving on and growing up. But, you know, I still care about O'Daly's and, you know, love that place and
forever.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so special.
What was your parents' response when you bought your first bar?
That's a funny question. So because I've talked about this a good bit, so maybe I'm gonna have to show them this podcast because I keep forgetting to ask them this question when I see them in person. But I remember I was at the light on Sage and Airport when I called my parents and said, "Hey, I don't think that I'm gonna look at, you know, pursuing graduate school. I think I'm gonna buy the bar that I'm DJing at." And it was on the phone and it, you know, separate times with each parent and I would love to like I would have loved to see their face, you know. I'm so blessed. My parents have been so supportive to, you know, every childhood activity or sport or you know, college decision, life decision. I'm sure they're a little nervous along the way. But my dad's been to every 6 a.m. St. Patrick's Day open.
Really?
Yeah. And so, you know, my mom actually does the bookkeeping and payroll for the businesses. So, you know, life is I've been very blessed. I really am. Yeah. So, but I have to remember to show them this part of the podcast and see their face at the time.
Yeah. I'll clip a reel out of it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, where's your gut telling you the next business decision or focus?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, after O'Daly's, I was like, I'm going to just like process, you know, cause I mean, it's like, you know, people are so encouraging and, you know, and so funny and supportive, but like, you know, as soon as people found out, it was like, all right, we know you have something in the works. Like, you know, like what's in the bag. And really like, it's probably one of the first times in my life really that I felt like I made a business decision that was really reflective of my own personal life, you know? And so it really was to kind of just like exhale a little bit. You know, we are still in works with the college for, you know, the golf course bar. And that's something that, you know, I've had to remotivate myself a few times. It's been a little tricky. The college has been persistent and really fantastic to work with. You know, it's been a tricky kind of brain teaser based off of how they do liquor licenses, but we are close and, you know, it's something that I'm excited about for sure. And then with Outsider, Insider, and Cedar Street, my partner and team, we're looking at really developing that back outdoor space into something that's really special for Mobile. We really want to bring some live entertainment that, you know, I was kind of doing at O'Daly's, but the space is a bit larger, kind of like more conducive to it, and the knowledge that I have to do that. But that's it for now. You know, there's been a couple other talks for some other, you know, ideas, but I'm kind of leaning into my current team and some of the current property that we do have businesses and own and manage for now. But man, it's like, as soon as I say that I'm not working on something, it's like, you know, it snowballs. So, that's the blessing of this community and really what you're doing, man. Like, this is really cool and special. And
thank you.
You know, I'm proud of you for the effort that you're doing. This is, you know, unique, and in your life, you don't really know the connections and how they're working, but they seem to kind of just organically be there.
Well, I hope to stay by your side.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And so you're doing a great job. I'm proud of you guys and your team. It's really awesome.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you more formally. And I can't wait to see the growth everywhere in the future.
Man, thanks for supporting us.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, man.
I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this, or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.